Hello, Leo. Welcome to this Trader Chat.
Hi, Gabriel. How are you?
Good. Thank you for joining. From all my students, you're the one that has worked the most on himself, and you've done quite some very interesting transformations, right? And our today's Trader Chat is basically about that, because I think you're a great example for other traders. So let me just give a very quick introduction on yourself. So you love psychology, right? Math, economy, strategy, game theory. You regularly practice yoga and meditation, and you've got a strong interest for mystical and complex systems such as the markets and nature. So that sounds like a very interesting personality.
Thank you.
Would you like to say a couple of words about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, with pleasure. I think what's interesting is how I come to trading. I discovered it basically when I was in university, and it immediately sounded like the ultimate game, because yeah, it was a very complex systems with I'd say maybe like it's an umbrella discipline. You'd have many different things that you can touch and play with when you are into trading. So yeah, I think I was 25 when I decided I would dedicate a good part of my life to it. And then things took, I'd say I took a bumpy road, because I arrived on the market of employment in 2008. So it was a massive crisis, and I could not basically work into investment banking, but I did not give up. So I kept on, learning about trading, and eventually started to trade my own accounts. And as soon as I started it, I realized it was a lot more difficult than what I thought it would be, because I had learned so many things. I was like, okay, I'm going to apply technical analysis and so on and so forth. And it turned out in live practice, it was a lot harder. So I was really lucky on the path, because I discovered the Van Tarp Institute. And then
When was that? In which year did you discover it?
I discovered Van in 2011, and I started studying the capital markets in 2006. So I was already a long way. Yeah, I remember reading Vans, and some pages I was like, oh, this is absolutely incredible, and this is genius. And then 2 pages later, I would find something that would trigger me, so I would be like, it's a bit weird, right? It's a bit woohoo. So I would put down the book, but then 10 minutes later, I would pick it up and start reading again. So I was really passionate with it from start. And then a few years after that, I was lucky enough to, in 2014, 2015, to see your work. And I was trying to, trade Forex and trade following the systems with moving averages. So a lot of what you were doing was really talking to me. So I was called to your workshops. So yeah, these are very important moments of the journey, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, you're not only an interesting personality, but your life has been very interesting so far too, right? I mean, you're French, but you've spent quite part of your working life in Dubai, right?
Correct. And I mean, I left France in 2009. I spent maybe half a year in Thailand, then 2 years in French Polynesia. I quickly passed by Hong Kong, and then it was 2015, 2011, the sovereign crisis in Europe. And then shortly after that, I ended up being in Dubai.
Mm-hmm. And now you're back in France, right? So since a year, I think.
Yes, back in France for a year with my wife, who's Nepali, and our son, so yeah, who's basically binational. So say we have a strong exposure to international the international life and traveling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think your wife is a yoga teacher, right? As far as I remember.
She doesn't teach yoga for now, although I think she really could. But yeah, she's been having those multi-potential careers. So she's event manager. She's a singing bowl therapist, hypnobirthing as well. So she has the various skills, but also a strong interest to personal development and well-being.
Okay, well let's talk about transformation. We had a quick chat before this call, and you mentioned that you've been working with the Vanthar Peak Performance home study course, right? Extensively, you've gone through 3 times, which I know is quite a transformation. And you did a live review exercise. That's what Ben recommends, and he's doing that with his super traders. And then you've done some quite extensive work on your beliefs, right? And as I mentioned in the beginning, I had no students so far who did so much work on like beliefs work. Well, I know it from myself and from others that working on beliefs is not like, it's not something that is I mean, the nicest thing to do, right? It takes some effort to start it, but once you start it and you dig a little bit, it's really interesting and fascinating, right? Especially if you start to release some of the stuck emotions that are attached to beliefs. So I mean, you've started with compiling a list of beliefs, right? And you had 400 beliefs. And let's start from there. So what did you do with those?
Well, it's this work with beliefs. I've done it like within. I think that I went through it at least 5 times, because I'd say the first time I did it, it was still something heavily cerebral. I would put down things and analyze them a lot, but not necessarily feel them or dig into them, or find the root cause, or necessarily understand where it was coming from. It was still useful, but I mean, I believe like working with your belief or working with your emotion, it's also a skill. And basically, the more skilled you get, the more intuitive you become, and the more clarity you have overall. So let's say that this journey and work, it has evolved over time.
So you were digging deeper and deeper, right? And you were applying. I mean, we discussed that during the course of our mentoring. But you were applying like different tools and techniques, right? So let's talk about that.
Well, in order to, I mean, I think the first thing is you need to have a good template. It may sound silly, but yeah, a good template for the belief is instrumental to being able to work properly with them in an organized way. And the best template I've had after all these years is the one you provided us. It did sort quite a few of the issues that I had. And like on the one part, you have the belief examination paradigm. It's really analytical and methodical. It's what Van provides in the course. And then on top of that, I incorporated as much as possible the Sedona Method or the Hawkins scales from power versus force. Like I think every belief you want to understand not only the belief, but where you got it from. And sometimes we don't know. It takes time, but yeah, understand the origin. So that would be coming from your life review exercise. And then you want to understand which type of emotions attached to it. So the Sedona Method and the Hawkins scales will provide a good view into it. Then when you have those things, how you release the emotion, Sedona Method, but there are other ways as well.
Right. Let's stop here for a second, because most viewers don't know about the Sedona method, or what the connection is with beliefs and emotions. Because some beliefs, or well, most beliefs don't have any emotion attached to it, right? So it's easy to change that belief if there's no emotion. But some of the beliefs, like the core and the deep-seated beliefs, they have an emotion attached, right? And very often these beliefs are an offspring of an emotion that has been experienced, maybe as a kid, right? Like an intense emotion. And then the belief was an offspring. So that means that basically you cannot change that belief. Like the belief is in place by the emotion that is attached, right? And you can only let go or change the belief if you chop off, either you take off completely the emotion or you chop off a good part of it, right? And then you mentioned the Sedona Method. So that's a method to chop off emotions, right? That are attached to beliefs, or in general to chop off if your buttons get pushed, like your emotions run crazy. Well, then with a Sedona method, well, you can chop off, right, things. And the Sedona method is a home study course, and you did that, right? And it's a technique. And you've been applying, that's what you said, right? Just recently, you've been applying that technique on emotions, right? To change beliefs. Was it that what you were doing?
I've used the Sedona method for. I mean, it's like there are many different use that you could have of it. One of them was directed work. So when you have your sheets of belief and you're looking into one, you're going to call up the emotion and release onto the emotion until it becomes something gentle or positive. Or, as you said, basically you want to transform the emotion into something that's ascended. And then when you reach levels of peace, like you can definitely change the belief and work with it, or run into situations where you're gonna basically face that situation again, but you will react very differently. That's one use of it. Then you can also use those methods randomly, like you walk into a situation of life where you don't feel comfortable, then working with the emotions, you're going to be able to step back, calm down, and then have the appropriate response instead of your, just coping with it and sometimes like meeting situations where you're going to be played and act in an automatic way. So I'd say these are at least two different ways. Then you could also as well imagine that you have some it's therapeutic. I used to have at some point I had night terrors, and I would wake up in the middle of the night and just be paralyzed. And with the Sedona method, and just having those loop, because it's a loop of question within 5 iterations, I could calm down and go back to sleep. And since that time, I've not had those problems anymore. So yeah.
Well, the Sedona method is basically it's a very short meditation, right? Thinking about a couple of questions, so that it's basically as simple as that, right? And it's very effective. I've been working with the Sedona method for a good number of years to work on my beliefs. And I remember, I don't know if that's your experience as well. Well, I remember whenever an old emotion stuck to a belief was released. Well, I felt an immense energy coming into my system. It's like a weight is taking off the shoulder, right? You feel happy and full of energy. Did you experience that as well?
Completely. As Hale, so Hale is the teacher from the Sedona method. He describes it as we are computers, and each belief or unresolved emotion is like a little program running on its own. And basically, the more you work with them and the more you release, the less programs are running and the less of your processing power or processing memory is being used. So it's like your computer becomes more performant when you shut down programs, and the same thing happens to us. We reduce the load, so automatically more of our power can be allowed to, just live in.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Living and experiencing life, right, as it should be, and not living in the past with old hurts that were accumulated in childhood, etc.
It's that. It's also the freedom, because if you are constantly controlled by your programs and things like that, when you meet a new situation, you have less chances of making a choice and more chances of having your subconscious directing you. So when you work with that, you end up, I don't know, having 20, 30, 40 times during a day where you're going to make a choice, as opposed to you'd have maybe half of that or a quarter of that before you start the work.
Well, I guess everybody, like hearing you, everybody understands how important that is for trading, right? You don't want to be a bio-robot and like getting steered by your emotions, basically, and your beliefs if they're unuseful to trading. So that's very important, very important work to do. From your psychology, from your type, Myers-Briggs type, you're an INFJ, right? That's what Van is as well, INFJ. So F is a feeling type. So you're solving problems by feeling, right? So you're a feeling type. In my experience with trading with working with traders that are the F type is that they've got a tremendous intuitive power. Like if they're trading and if they're in a good zone, like if they're in a good mental state, they're very, very good with intuition. That comes from their feeling part. However, the downside is that these traders, the F traders, they can easily get euphoric, right? Or fearful, because they're a little bit more emotional, right? And more open to the intuition than others. And you are such a trader as well, right? So it's a strength and it's a downside as well. And you did the exact right thing, right? To work on that and to clear like anything that is unuseful to trading and to life as well. And you, in our chat before, you mentioned, well, you didn't only like work specifically on beliefs, but you worked as well on emotions, right? With a free flow method. So just let's talk about that. So how did you incorporate that in your daily life?
It's working with the free flow is like basically there's this directed work where you take your belief and you work with them. That's going to be a special type of practice or special type of work. But what structures any belief is you have a few emotions, and some people spend a lot of their time being happy. Some of them spend a lot of time being fearful or angry. I used to be angry or worried about a lot of things, and basically when you are governed by those emotions, yes, you can work on the belief specific to trading that contain those emotions, and it's interesting. But if you really want to tackle the whole thing, working on the emotion itself is going to be very, very powerful. And life becomes like a play field, because think about, I don't know, fear or anger or whatever governs you. You have multiple occasions to experiment those emotions every day. And it can be literally on anything: your personal life with your spouse or partner, work is a big one, but just going in the streets or having a meeting with, I don't know, a doctor or a salesperson. We are constantly triggered into having these. So at some point, I was having that practice where I would just put the tape in the car on a long drive, and I would have an hour for me just to release on literally anything that would come up. So it's completely intuitive, because you have the process coming up. So you have those series of questions coming up, and I was like, I didn't have an agenda. So I was just following my gut, and I was like, oh, you argued with your father the other day on the phone, then you're going to work on your relation with your father, or something stressing you at work, and you're going to spend the 20, 30 minutes before you go to work to work on that. And doing it over and over again, it becomes a bit of a habit to do it on everything that's pushing you. And then there's also like very interesting things that happens at the level of emotions. Like at the beginning, I was asking myself the questions and answering the questions, because as you mentioned, it's going to be a loop of questions like, can you welcome this emotion? Can you release it? Would you release it? When? But after, and you're going to repeat until the emotion is completely calmed down and evaporated. But after a while, when you really use those methods, every time you ask yourself the questions, I could feel some parts of my body becoming more loose, or less contracted or less inflamed. And at some point, I just started to focus on what was going on in the body and actually relaxing my tummy at once instead of asking myself the question. Just relax your tummy. So I do some yoga, so it helps. You have some um, I don't know how to say, but yeah, there's a huge communication between yoga and Sedona Method, because working with the body, you work on your emotional mind as well. But it works both ways. When you just work on the emotion, your body is going to react. So at some point, you can become fully intuitive and just forget about the question, forget about the analysis, and feel some discomfort, release it, and change your body posture, and that's it. You feel better at once.
Yeah. Yeah, the nice thing with the Sedona method, you mentioned it, you can do it everywhere, right? You can do it when you're queuing up and you've got some free time available, even in the car. So that's nice. Yeah. Well, I mean, I've used Sedona method, and for me, well, I've used it in these situations too. And I've used it as well in situations where my buttons were pushed, right? Like when the emotional body is basically steered up, and that's a great time to work on these on these emotions and stuck things. And well, many years back, I always had that, maybe once a month, that my buttons got pushed and I couldn't sleep right for that. And well, I was working with the Sedona method back at that time, and I was able to release like all this stuff. I'm not even pretty sure what was it exactly, but that doesn't happen to me anymore, right? That I cannot sleep anymore because my buttons get pushed. That was typically for me with anger, right? Like anger was running in my head, and I couldn't sleep, and that completely disappeared with working on these type of things, like this release, feeling release type of work you did, right? And life can completely change, right? It gets much easier and happier and more successful. And I get a lot of feedback from others as well, like when they work on their feeling release and their beliefs, that it has an impact on their personal life, and that their spouses and kids understand that too, right? And they get positive feedback.
Correct. Yeah.
You worked with other, I mean, you tried out other things, right? So for example, you tried out tapping, right? Which I did at some point in time. Let's quickly talk about that, tapping. It didn't work for me, but I think it did well for you, right?
It's tapping's been something really interesting, because you're gonna have those loops of questions, like it's a way to think about your issue and bring up the emotions. But tapping add, as I say, the tapping, so they're gonna tap through some points that are like on the meridians or energetical points, and it's a way to associate your body to your mind, so that you work in a let's say a full encompassing way on the belief and the emotion. And I really liked it, because it is intuitive, and I would use it as well in special setups. Like I was at that point where I was using it extensively. There was a cold swimming pool in my building, and a sauna that was actually working on. No, it was a steam bath. So I could tap for like quite a while, as much as I could take the hot steam. And so I would keep even the room in the dark. I was usually alone, so you can imagine how intense things become. And then I would use the Wim Hof method, some breathing and the cold exposure. So go into the cold bathroom and do some loops within these. And I found when you associate several methods that way, it's really something really, really powerful. It's difficult, because you are working with your mind, with your body, and with difficult conditions and emotions. But it used to be something really cathartic and really transforming.
Okay, great. Yeah. Well, let's talk about technology. You've been using the HeartMath technology, which is a handheld appliance, right? The EmWave. which measures the heart currents, and that gives you a clue about your mental state, right? How quiet you are, and how well focused you are. So let's talk about that.
Well, it was an old dream. Like I discovered biofeedback in 2011, and I was like, oh, that would be super interesting to actually plug a trader onto this type of tools and be able to, ideally, I'd have a tool constantly plugged on me and being able to tell me, okay, you're coming out of the zone, so now you should not trade anymore. That's the ideal. And then a few years back, I discovered a machine that was actually affordable, and the HeartMath is focusing on the heart as opposed to the brain, because this institute HeartMath realized that when the electrical power of your heart, it's like the dynamo, and it has the ability to directly affect how efficient your brain is going to be in dealing with what are the tasks that you have at hand. And yeah, obviously, when you are in a state of coherence, so they measure coherence between it's the space between each heartbeat, and apparently when you have something that's quite constant and not chaotic, then it means you are in a calm state, and your heart is sending back like positive messages to your brain, which is gonna work at its best. So the idea is if you can directly uh, plug this tool on your ear, you have a little captor, and it's gonna tell you live what's your heart coherence. So you can use breathing and think of positive things and push yourself into a high state of coherence. That has an immediate effect, but there's also a residual effect. If you do that often, you have more chances of being in a higher states of coherence or not going as low when you are triggered. So it's multiple benefits from that tool.
Yeah, it's basically an early warning tool, right? It tells you whenever you're getting angry or fearful or euphoric. You might not even find out about it first, but the appliance will give you the signal, right?
At the minute you start to have a mind chatter, the coherence drop, and when you are like in extremely tense moments where you get angry or you missed an entry and it triggers you, or you are reaching to a level where your profits are not protected, and the market's coming back against you, then you will see directly on the charts that you entered a red zone, basically.
Yeah.
So that's one way to use it. I find it more difficult to really monitor myself that way, but I still do it sometimes. The main use that I have for it nowadays is when I trade and using the top task of trading. At the focus and intention part, I'm gonna set a few minutes, say 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 8 minutes, 10 minutes, and work with basically the EmWave until I can have a nice state of high coherence and be in the zone for that amount. Mm-hmm. Then you can start to screen your market and trade, and I found that it's probably one of the best ways to directly go into flow when you trade.
Yeah, but you label yourself an intuitive and flow trader, right? And I guess it's well self-evident that the mental state is very important, right? So you're capitalizing on your F of your Myers-Briggs F, right?
And it's two things, because as you mentioned earlier, it's a double-edged sword. When everything is correct in my life, say I don't have questions, everything's fine with the people I love, and I have enough time before me to trade, and I do the top task of trading, then I'm gonna be able to go into flow. And you know, the charts just go by. When you see patterns that are not so great, you let them go like just happily, and suddenly something's really good, and you just look at it, and you find yourself taking the trade, and the market reacts, and uh, usually beautifully. But even then, when a good pattern or positive pattern starts to not work, it's easy to get out of it. Now that's a good scenario when the F is playing in my favor. Otherwise, I know that when I come to the market with you know, difficulties in mind, whatever they are, when I start to, you know, try and avoid doing my top tasks of trading, then disaster struck. I'm yeah. After all these years with trading, I can still make rookie mistakes and jump into things where I shouldn't be, execution mistakes as well, or trail in a poor manner and cutting profits shorts. So yeah, being having this, it's like yeah, it's a blessing and a curse at the same time. So I know that when I use the EmWave, when I've done my yoga beforehand, uh, when I come to the market, having like, you know, done my board meeting, and I know that every aspect of my life is good enough for me to bring a positive mind state to trading, then yeah, I think things go well. And the EmWave helps me capture that, and yeah, flip the odds in my favor to be in a good state.
Okay, great. Yeah. Before we come to the tips and tricks you have, right? Just a quick word about beliefs. I wanted to mention that, but we didn't talk about it. Like I mean, you started with a list of 400 beliefs, right? And that's kind of whatever comes up, like intuitively, and the belief, and this list gets compiled over a couple of weeks, basically, right? So it's a bit of work to bring out all these beliefs that are, I mean, the subconscious beliefs are the interesting ones, right? Not the conscious and logic beliefs. And then you call them meta beliefs, right? There are just a couple of meta beliefs, maybe a handful or a little bit more, that are the important ones. And working with students, well, I call them core beliefs. That's typical, right? I mean, everybody has meta beliefs that are, well, for this personality, they might be anger-based or fear-based or euphoria-based or whatever else. And these are the important, that's a cluster of beliefs specific to that person, right? And working on these beliefs brings yeah, the most benefit, basically. And you did that, right? You worked on your meta beliefs and did some clearance on that.
Yes, correct. I mean, as you say, you start with 400 beliefs. Now, what Van calls the environmental belief, like, you know, what you believe about a moving average, or it's interesting. And when you come down to trading and having your systems, yes, you need to believe in what you're doing. But, you know, it took me like education with you and experience to work on these, and it's not as deep as, you know, things that you're going to believe about God or about yourself, or uh, what trading really represents socially, maybe. So you want to work more on the side that is deeper, and what's really deep is, yeah, spiritual belief, identity belief, capacity. So already out of 400, you're going to narrow to maybe 100, 120. And I was working extensively with them, and at some point it was yes, I'd say something very synthetic that happened. I realized, okay, I've reduced the intensity of most of them. I found alternative positive beliefs, but doing that, all of a sudden it just appeared to me, okay, like I have only four, and they were down to, you know, self-esteem, my belief into the ability of being creative, scarcity, and yeah, basically when uh, when I realized that, I was like, okay, so those four beliefs are basically directing pretty much all the other ones, and they were like those this long list of beliefs I had were maybe a recombination of maybe sometimes 1, 2, or 3 or more of those meta beliefs. And then they were usually like directed towards a specific situation or person or activity. But in the same way that belief usually have an emotion attached to it, like small belief, there's usually a big belief. And like I used to,
so if you work on these meta beliefs or core beliefs, you get rid of some of the emotion. Well, it has a triggering effect, right? It's very efficient to focus on these meta beliefs, because it has an impact. Like it has a huge impact, right, on all the other 400 that were on your list. And that's the interesting thing. Yeah, I had this. I experienced the same with me and with other students. Yeah, you want to identify those core beliefs and then work on those, right? Focus on those, and it might have a tremendous impact on your life, right? And trading. Absolutely, yeah.
It's a big gain of time, a big gain of efficiency and power, because once you have the say you have, like I think the divorce of my parents played a big role into that. So I had the meta belief of separation. So separation comes down to being competitive with others, to being more prone to having maybe the difficulties in your couple or other things of that sort. And when you have that thing, okay, separation, what's the opposite of separation? What's more? Then it's oneness. And as a yoga or meditation student, oneness is a big thing. You eventually believe that consciousness is shared and we are all united. So adopting that viewpoint when you are being triggered, it's a shortcut. I'm feeling separated in oneness, and how can I look at my situation in the light of oneness? And this itself it's a big trick. And it works really well. Then in the same way that each meta belief, a negative meta belief, can have dozens of belief, well, you can do the same thing on the other side. Say, okay, I used to believe into scarcity, so now I'm going to be abundant. How can I be abundant even if I don't have so much money? Well, you can be abundant with your effort. You can be abundant with bringing gratitude to your trading. I used to get angry when I was making mistakes, and on the last year, if I'm making a mistake, then I'm going to be grateful, and I'm going to say, okay, maybe I lost a bit of money on that trade, but how can I be abundant? Well, I'm going to go to the Forex tester. I'm going to replay it several times. I'm going to play it well. I'm going to try different ways to play with it. And that's a direct application of the belief of abundance that's going to become, actions, and that are going to change the end result. So you have to be playful. You have to understand it's like a tree. So you have those limiting beliefs coming up, then you have a big belief on top of that, then you find a positive belief in front of it, and then you're going to redescend it into smaller beliefs and actions, and eventually it changes your whole experience completely.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because I'd say when you combine your meta beliefs together, then it gives you a big idea of the games you play. Because if I used to believe I'm separated, then I would come to the market like to make myself feel better or feel superior. But believing into scarcity, or that I'm not creative, or having a low self-esteem, well, the result would not have very good results, trading results. Then I would have even a poorer vision of myself, and have even less money on your account. So scarcity has become realized as well. So when you see that, you can somehow break out of those loops much more easily, and that's another way to use the belief words.
Okay, great. Yeah. Let's come to tricks and things that really helped you along the way. What can you recommend?
I think because I've seen, as you mentioned, a lot of resistance to doing those things, to doing the belief work. And it's true, it's hard, but as just as it's precise into deliberate practice, the book, the talent code, they precise, nobody likes the deliberate practice, but when you give into it and when you push yourself to do it, after a while, the top performers, they just enjoy the process and they enjoy doing it, and this is where the magic unfolds, basically. So I would recommend to be persistent and yeah, keep digging and enjoy the process, and believe into what it's going to bring you in the end, like more freedom, more happiness. That's a big one. Like those things, they are like onions, basically. It's an onion, so you have layers, and as you go and suddenly you remove the outer layers, you're gonna find things that you did not suspect that will be harder, and at the same time, it's where the jam is, basically. Each new deeper layer has more to offer than the previous one. I since the corona, it's been a huge opportunity for me to tackle things that I had not seen coming at all, even though I've been working on it all these years. And yeah, I think the last year has been really hard, and at the same time, I've dealt with things that were really deep. So yeah, keep going wherever you are with it. Go for it. Be enthusiastic. Be happy. Be curious. It's what I call intellectual awe. Like, you can be struck with how beautiful and perfect the whole game is, basically.
Okay.
So that would be a big one, I'd say.
Yeah, great. Yeah, you've sent me. May I just read that out, because these are your words. And I think let's make this a closing comment. That's from you, recommendation. So you recommended redo, and redo. Dive deeper into the onion until there's no more. Another one was, well, try different techniques. Another one is dare to look where you don't and what you resist. Right, this is what Van talks about as well. The ego is in the way. Right, so these are words of wisdom.
The ego. There's one thing that was told to me like 2 years ago, and it really struck me, because I came to this work and still bringing in the Western vision, and I was like, okay, ego is stopping me from good trading, so ego is the enemy. And it's really what ego is. It's a mental construct that we own and that we build upon trauma to be able to find a way into this world. So when you work thinking the ego is the enemy and the ego will stop you, you're basically working against yourself. Now, what was told is like, okay, the ego is your friend. The ego is with you, and maybe doesn't do things that help you with trading, but he's not the enemy. Work with him and improve him. Give him love, give him understanding, and that's basically oneness work. It's like integrating your shadow parts.
Yeah.
And when I flipped my vision of it and become more encompassing and friendly, I was able to access to I'd say a higher level of ease and performance and peace, basically.
Yeah. At the Oneness University, they made a nice metaphor. Well, they said the ego is basically sitting on your right shoulder. It's a small monkey, and he's steering your life, right? And you're not even aware of it. And it's up to you, right, to be aware that there's a monkey sitting, and that not the monkey is riding you, but that you are basically that you're in control, and not the little monkey, right, whispering in your ears, making you think things you didn't want to do.
Correct. Well, in the end, the monkey will go up the coconut tree and bring you down some food if you ask him kindly. So yeah, it's not the enemy.
Exactly. It's about using it. Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, great. That's a great ending, I think. Thanks very lot. Thanks very much for this very interesting talk.
My pleasure and my honor. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.